Roses are starting to show up in the garden centers, and we'd like to give you a word of advice, and that is to buy your roses early. Remember that roses come in several different forms. They're usually bare root, wrapped in some kind of peat moss and plastic, or they may even come in a box. But once they get to the garden center or to the discount garden centers, the first thing that they do is just put them on the shelf, usually indoors, store them at room temperature, and they may never check them again for several weeks for moisture. So the earlier that you can buy your roses, the better off you are. There's some research that's been going on showing that if the roses are stored at room temperature and no moisture is given to them, they will actually develop fewer bud breaks, which would result in fewer flowers, and also your chances of survivability into the following year are a little bit slim. Now the roses are going to grow for you, they're just not going to perform, and they may be stunted ahead of time. So there's some things that you want to do once you go to the store. You want to ask questions, find out how long the roses have been there. See if they're storing them outside, because that's a little bit better because the temperatures are cooler. And then check to see if there's any wax on the roses. And that's a good sign, because the wax actually will help keep the roses from dehydrating or transpiring, and you'll have a little better success with them. A lot of people don't buy roses with wax on them because they're kind of unsightly. Some manufacturers will just put wax on the tips, which are still beneficial, but if you can get the whole plant waxed, you're a little bit better off. Now this one that we've purchased, you'll notice there's a lot of damage on the canes where they've been shipped in, and usually they're wrapped with twine that's also waxed. When you get your roses, cut that off, and again, check and see what kind of damage you've received. You may need to do a little bit of pruning to remove some of that damaged wood, but really the majority of your pruning on roses, especially ones that you have in the garden that are established, you need to hold off until the end of March or even the 1st of April. It's still a little bit too early to prune. But damaged things or damaged branches on your new rose bushes, go ahead and prune those off. Once you get the rose, before you plant it, check and see how it's packaged again. And we're just going to peel this package off and show you how it's packaged up, wrapped in paper, and then it's just peat moss on it. And these are bare root, and you just want to go ahead and pull all of that soil off, shake it off as much as you can. And you'll get a little better idea of the root system, and as you can see, there's not much of one on this particular plant. And it's grafted here at this crown area. But since a lot of them have been stored so long again, the first thing that you want to do is just submerge that rose in some water. And we've got a bucket of water here, and we're just going to place that rose down in the water and let it soak like that for about 3 hours. After 3 hours, we'll take it out, wash off the root system, and then we'll plant it in our planting hole. Now remember, on roses, they really are a high maintenance plant. They require a very fertile soil, so you need to add a lot of organic matter in it. You can actually use some of the material that we pulled off the root system back in the planting hole or in the planting bed. If you've got a good fertile soil, just put it in your compost pile and reuse it that way. But soak that root system real well, and then once you've done that, make sure your planting hole is nice and big, real deep, and you kind of mound the soil up in the bottom so your root system will set down over the mound of soil. You can do a little bit of root pruning if you need to on maybe some of the broken root system, but primarily you just want to make sure it's a good fertile soil. They're planted at the same depth, and you don't want to plant them too deep that you cover up the graft, because you can get some rotting in that area. And again, wait a little bit on pruning your other roses till the end of March or April. And also some things you need to start thinking about are insects and diseases that are going to be coming on roses. For some reason in Oklahoma, because of our heat and our humidity, the roses are stressed a lot, and we have a problem with black spot, which is a fungus disease that gets on the foliage, usually during the hot, humid times of the summer. The leaves will become chlorotic yellow, drop off, the plant will really be stressed. So really, roses are a high maintenance crop. They require a lot of fertilizer, a lot of spraying if you really want to keep them in tip-top shape. And then later on in the summer, we'll start seeing the spider mites come in as the temperatures increase. And those, remember, on the underneath sides of the leaves cause them to have a speckled appearance and again can cause the roses to become stressed and drop the foliage. So when you're selecting your roses, try to pick one that is maybe disease resistant. There's so many varieties anymore. There's also different types. This one is a hybrid tea rose, which means that it will have a single blossom on the end of its cane. The other one that we've got soaking was a grandiflora. Usually they come in clusters but are still big roses. And if you would like to get some more information about roses, don't forget to check at your county extension service. We've got a fact sheet number 6400 that you can pick up at your county extension office entitled Roses in the Landscape, and it will help answer some of these questions that we've been talking about today.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.